All right, folks, welcome back to the show. It's another episode of the Agency Freedom Podcast. We help insurance professionals move from captivity to freedom. And my guest for this episode is a legit freedom jumper. Not that long ago either. He is a member of the distinguished FFA Club, the former Farmers Agents Club, based in the great state of Utah. Mr. Ryan Englund, thank you for joining us, my friend.
Thank you, James. I appreciate it.
No, you and I are birds of a feather, man. We come from the same carrier. We have similar ways of looking at things. We're both very network-minded, referral-driven. I don't know how in the world it took me 150-something episodes to get you on the pod, but I am glad you are here, man. Thank you to those of you who are watching this on our YouTube channel. Keep on trying to direct people there because the video version of these episodes is a lot more enjoyable for some people. Also, of course, thank you to those of you listening on the traditional podcast networks. Ryan, man, I'm going to point everything straight at you. I always love starting with the biography questions. Love to hear about your life and how you got to this chapter and what you're up to. Tell us about your family, about what you did before insurance, and how you found your way to this industry.
Absolutely. I was in a sales position and had a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. Just hated selling commercial tires, and looked in the classifieds back in the day and found that a farmer's DM had placed an ad and signed on the dotted line and started selling insurance. Not really having any idea what I was doing, but it got me to where I am, and so I'm glad I did that. And so got to the point where my boys got older. I have 2 boys, and I coached, never missed a game, never missed a practice. That was my number one reason for what I was doing. Money's important, right? We all want that, but now they're 28 and 24, and I've got all the memories in the world of those days, those early days. So, got remarried in 2019. So I have a stepson as well, a beautiful wife. Got married on the beach in Cabo, and decided to make the jump. So that's the short version of getting here.
Man, love that. Beach in Cabo sounds nice. This time of year, that's wonderful. So you saw an ad from a DM and you responded, and you were tired of selling tires, no pun intended,
Exactly.
and you decided that insurance sounded like a better gig.
Yeah, I
Man,
had a brother-in-law that was a DM in San Diego, so there was a little bit of talk, that gone on, and then I had talked to my Allstate agent, my car insurance, and they're like, "Go for it, do it." So everybody kept saying, "Do it." I said, "Let's give it a shot."
so that was how long ago? I know you. We'll get to your Freedom Jump story here in just a little bit, of course. When did you join the ranks of the Farmers Agents?
1998. That's
Oh,
when my
wow.
contract was signed.
Man, I forgot that you were in that long. You and I've had so many conversations over the years. That's my bad. So you and I, you were probably a year away from leaving Farmers when you and I first started talking, huh?
Yeah, I
It's been
think
at least 2 years ago.
we had talked once or twice back when you were at Farmers, but then we kind of connected a little bit more as episode 1, of the Freedom Jump podcast. I started, what the first 6 or 7 episodes you got to memorize best
Oh,
you
man.
can. So, then we connected on some referral stuff. But yeah, it was.
Okay. Yeah, because I knew that you were still deep in Farmers Land when you and I first connected. I forgot that we had talked back when I was a Farmers Agent. That was 5 years ago now. It's kind of hard to believe. But anyway, enough about me. The journey to Farmers Land. And then late 90s, we haven't had the .com explosion. We haven't had a couple of economic downturns. The late 90s, early 2000s were booming. Great time to be an insurance agent. Tell me about your time at Farmers. What did you really enjoy? What were you good at? What were the things that left you wanting more, perhaps?
We were almost 90% personal lines. Um, Farmers' home rates couldn't be touched. And I think until just recently that would still hold true. Um, Now a home policy here for $300,000-400,000 was 500-600 bucks.
Oh, wow.
Um, and so I remember riding an elevator with somebody at a conference, and they just said, "How in the world do you make a living?" You know, um, he was from Texas, and he just said, $500 or $600. How do you do that? But
Yeah.
it was just what we did, and that was all we knew. And it started. Yeah, I mean, I remember when it went to a web-based dashboard away from the AS400. I was there during that transition, and you would start and you would tear the applications apart and take out the carbon, so you had two, and you would meet at people's house at the kitchen table, gather information, come back, quote it, go back, and that's all we knew, and I loved
Wow.
it. I had an appointment today at a kitchen table. It's been the first one in many, many years,
Wow.
but that was fun. You really got to know people. Um, Retention was fantastic, that way. So it's different back then for sure.
Man, that no disrespect at all to any of our listeners or even you, Ryan, for living through that chapter. That sounds like the Stone Ages compared to where we are today in 2024. It's like carbons feeding stuff into an AS400 machine. Why are we not scratching stuff out on stone tablets with rocks?
Yeah, I remember
Wow.
going into a district manager's office when I was still there in their office, and was irate because I had a client screaming at me that their rate was, I don't know, doubled, we'll call it. Well, it took 3 weeks for us to find the tickets that he had,
Oh, no.
and we didn't have instant MVRs. We didn't have any of that stuff. So you gave a rate based on what they said, and the DM really taught me a lesson about, well, if they lied to you, then it's their problem.
Yep.
Send them down the street. And yeah, that's just how we had to do it.
Man.
But we also had a phone number to your underwriter, and they answered the phone. Hi, Ryan. Good morning, Ryan. So there were some real big pluses back then when
Oh,
you
yeah.
built relationships with underwriters and you had claims adjusters that lived in your town. And there's a lot of great things back in the Stone Age too that we
Yeah.
lost. So
Oh, yeah. The technology innovation sword definitely cuts both ways. I'm not foolish enough to think that everything is better now than it used to be. That's definitely not the case. So you were in farmers land for a long time. You built a strong agency, thriving and doing all the things. And you and I are not spring chickens anymore. I just turned 40. You're a little bit beyond me in years. Not too many, I would imagine. At what point did you say to yourself, you know what, I want something more and something different from the rest of my career, however long that might be, and start thinking about what a future after farmers might be after more than 20 years as a farmer's agent?
it was actually about year 20 that I found myself in a place where I would just, things were starting to get hard. They were harder than they used to be, and I was just frustrated. I didn't know if I was going to go do something else, but this is all I know. But got in with a marketing group and traveled to Houston, sat down with about 10 or 12 people, and found out that, everybody had been captive at one point. Everybody in the room, different stories, different parts of the country. Um, I'd always kind of thought about the independent world. You always do, but not in a serious way. And I knew that the time was up.
Mm,
Now, we can get into how long it takes to get out of an agency sometimes with farmers, but I knew in 2018 it was time. I
mm,
absorbed podcasts galore. I started learning about AMSs and CRMs, and all my stuff was outside of, as far as CRM stuff was not in farmers. I did not use their system. I knew I needed to be able to take my leads with me someday, and so we started in 2018 and just um, got to about had a deal done internally. with another agent with farmers, and that got pulled out from under us because those rules can change any day, right? And so I talked to my boys, Kyle and Isaac. Isaac's been with me a few years. Kyle's recently jumped on the life side, but I said, guys, if you guys want this, okay, if I stay at Farmers, I probably won't grow much. It's going to be tough. We'll stay where we're at, but I'm comfortable and I'll work the rest of my life. Don't really have an exit plan. And after Isaac graduated college, he just said, I want in. This is the right industry. It's the strongest, most stable industry out there. Yeah, that was through COVID. That was not 2023. And once they said they were in, let's go. You know, 10 times,
Man,
not 2 times. We're going all in and sold for whatever I
man,
could get out of it and walked. That was it.
I love it. There's something magical that happens in a person. I can't speak for the ladies out there, but what in the mind and the heart of a dad when you realize that you have the opportunity to do something special and fun with your kids, and it transcends business at that point, right? It's just the best parts of life done with the people that you love most, your own flesh and blood. Tell me about that, working in the last few years with your sons. How's that been?
Well, they're about 300 miles away. They're in the southern part of Utah, and so everything between us and them was virtual.
Mm,
But I'm also on Teams, face to face with him, 5, 6, 7 times a day. you know, that's how we talk. I get to see my kids every day. We're working together on projects, and if we have questions, and when I started this at 24 years old, and I was thinking I got this 4-year-old, 1-year old, and my wife at the time, I said, "Hey, I'm going to leave a salary job and go 100% commission." I cannot have ever dreamed that they would ever want to be a part of insurance and that we would all work together. There's no
mm,
way. Who
man,
knows if I thought I would even make it, let alone your kids want to do what you're doing is it's powerful, and it gets me going, you know, 10, I work more now than I ever have. They're out of the house and it's 10, 11 hours a day, and it's for them as much as it's for me. I want to be able to leave something for them that will also help me with an exit plan, but it's fun. It's as fun as anything I've ever done in my entire life.
Ryan, it sounds like you are just living your best life, man. Having your two sons involved, even if it's 300 miles away. I mean, you're still working with family. That's got to be a whole lot of fun for you.
It is. I couldn't be happier. 2023 has been a tough year. Don't get me wrong, but I love it. I've never been happier, and the weight off my shoulders making this jump has been the greatest thing I've ever done.
So in 2019, 2018, something like that. I forget exactly what year it was. They put the kibosh on you selling internally. So what is your coping mechanism for the next almost 4 years that you stay with Farmers after you thought you were going to leave? Tell me what that was like for you. Feeling stuck, I would imagine, and trying to figure out to scheme what your exit looks like.
I'll kind of describe it even back a little bit further. Farmers was never captive. I never felt captive. We have a lot of different companies, and I had plenty of products, more products than I even wanted to sell. And when you realize that you don't have any control of selling, you could give your 90 days and walk. But at the time, it was worth a little bit more than that on the other side. But when I found out I didn't control the selling, that's when the frustration really came in, and sometimes anger. When you have to try to find an outside buyer for a farmer's agency in Utah, it's not really easy. They're not lying.
Yeah.
And so we put our head down and we just said, sell our butts off until we can figure this out, because
Mm.
there's nothing else we can do about it. We can't control that. So we talked to a district manager that wasn't on our side. I had a lot of great ones, but the last one was not. And so we knew we just had to sell. Just sell as much as you can, and either that's going to help the valuation, it'll put food on the table, right? Just keep selling. And eventually, I did get a call that said that the district had found somebody that was interested in buying two agencies. So I made a phone call to somebody else, and he bought both of us. So it did happen, but it was a tough few years, knowing that
Mm.
you thought you were out, that you wanted to be out, and you can't get. I could have walked. We could have walked for contract value, and I guess I was stubborn enough that I didn't want to do that. And whether
Well,
that
I would
was
imagine
whether that was right or wrong, I don't know.
the delta in your exit was probably substantial. So,
Yeah, and we needed, I should say, because my boys were going to be involved. We needed as much as we could out of the agency.
oh yeah,
We really
I would
did.
imagine the hardest part for you was dealing with everybody at the company because you tried to sell and everybody knew you tried to sell. So everybody who's paying attention knows you don't want to be there. You're not happy. And I would imagine there was a lot of tension with the internal folks at the company just going, well, it's only a matter of time before Ryan leaves. So we really don't care what he thinks.
And that is when, when I really realized that I was just 7609 da da da. I was just a number. And
Mm,
growing up with the company as a family, it was a farmer's family, and it really was. At the beginning, and from us to DMs to state directors to territory people, we hung out. They knew my kids. Now, towards the end, nothing. And for sure, once they found out, your DM found out you wanted out, they didn't care.
yeah.
And when the deal finally got done, I never heard from anybody,
Yep.
and I was okay with it. I was okay with that. But from the beginning to the end, it changed a lot. And overall, fantastic experience. I wouldn't be where I'm at without him. If I wouldn't have signed on the dotted line in 1998, who knows what I'd been doing? Not insurance. So I'm glad I did it,
Mm.
and I'm glad that there were people before me that made a jump that I called. You being one of them, but many others that I knew, and they got us where we are now. It's fun.
Your story sounds remarkably similar to mine. And except for the whole thinking that I was able to sell and then being pulled back in, I I know myself well enough to know that I probably would not have had the maturity to stick it out for 3 or 4 years longer like you did. So bravo to that. I probably would have been of the mindset to pull the pin on the hand grenade and just chuck it and leave the room and see what happens. But that's not your story. So you're a better man than I am there. I yeah, I've told the story in Leaving Captivity, my book. I don't know if you've read it or not, where there was a very contentious conversation right at the end with the guy who was the North Texas director of whatever, and gosh, he was so smug and just so unpleasant, and it literally was all I could do to not jump the table and strangle him. Just the look on his face of contempt that he had towards me. It was quite a jarring experience. I've never had anyone look at me like he looked at me that day, and it's just like, and now he's the head of a zone, and it's like, how have you gotten promoted 3 times since I left? Like, come on, man,
Yeah.
you treat people very poorly. And all of that to say, it is it is a much better story than mine would have been. So bravo, sir. I very much appreciate the way that you handled
I
that.
feel like it's just different. I don't know if it's better. It's just different. There's so a lot of times we don't have control over how something's going to go down, and I'm one that can lose it pretty quick.
Yeah.
I'll admit that I speak very bluntly and honestly and openly about everything. And um, the DM at the end that was not on my side from day one, he's no longer there either. So
Mm. That's got to feel a little bit good knowing that you have,
it,
vindication.
he knew it. He knew what was going on, with the company and what there were a few decisions made by the company that we all know just about torpedoing the ground. Like there's big mistakes. There's little mistakes. There's things that frustrate us as agency owners, but when you see a company making huge mistakes, you get out.
Yep.
You get out.
Well, the number of senior executives that have left in the last 5 years, and daily retiring, obviously, that's a huge thing. But the moment that I forget what his name was, Ron Smith, something like that. He was the heir apparent, and he left the company and under mysterious terms. I don't really have any idea what happened, but I really liked him, and I think all the agents that I knew personally was like, he's a good dude. He understands it. He gets it. And when he left, I was still an agent for, I don't know, a year and a half after that. I was like, ugh, if Smith is gone, things are heading in the wrong direction at home office, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Obviously, I mean, thousands of agents are perfectly happy being at farmers. I didn't mean for this to turn into a farmers bash fest. That's not
No,
the point at
no,
all.
yeah, and I don't think it is. It's just some facts that happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I try to keep this podcast out of the mud as much as possible and just stick to the facts and take the high road, wherever we can. So all that to say, you decided that the time had come and you found your buyer and you left. Let's talk about the leaving, as I know that you're barely a year into selling on the IA side. You said February, March, and I'm looking at my calendar going, we're in late February. We're almost exactly a year that Ryan has been doing the IA thing. What was your experience like transitioning out? It sounds like you had a really nice on ramp. You were ready and very well prepared for your freedom jump. What was it like at the beginning?
It was good. I did feel like I was really ready. I knew that there would be things that I didn't know that I didn't yet know of, but we had, you know, January 1st, I guess, January 2nd comes along and we have no carriers. We are truly independent. We have direct contracts that we started getting around February, March, April. It started to pick up, having enough carriers to really go out and go after some business. But in that meantime, my AMS is fully set up. My CRM I've had for 6 years is ready to roll and ready to start spitting out automation. The radar's in place. The website's built. The mobile app is on just about done by that point. So we used those few months that we couldn't really sell again by because we chose not to go with an aggregator that would immediately give me access. I definitely wanted to be independent 100%. And I feel like some aggregators are just you're captive. Um, you're independent, but you're
You,
captive. So we chose to do it that way, which made it a hard beginning, and it was kind of scary when you aren't selling anything for months. Um,
yeah. I mean, you went, what, 2 or 3 months without being able to sell?
yeah, I mean we grabbed a couple insure techs up at the beginning, and you'd write a couple policies, but we didn't have enough to go after my. What do you do? What do you tell your loan officers, your lender partners that you've built for years? I have one insurtech home company that's pretty decent. Didn't work. So we let them know that we were in a pause situation, um, so that they
And
knew.
were you able to pick those relationships back up once you got properly appointed?
Most of them, some left on their own accord because of their market and their struggles.
Yeah.
So some of
23
them are
wasn't
gone.
exactly a glowing year for the mortgage industry.
So there were a couple of different sides, but we've picked up new ones, and we continue to pick up new ones. Our goal is still, um, as of right now, my favorite Facebook shut me down completely. disabled an account. I do not exist. I had to start over. Got hacked and some things happened, but all my ads gone. I have to start over. So as of today, and that just happened in the last 45 days. Right now, it is all referral business, 100% right now,
Mm,
and we're about as we're busier than we've ever been, ever on this side.
love it.
So
What are your best referrals? Is it just traditional personal line stuff, mortgage and realtors and car dealership folks, or are you doing something else?
mortgage and realtors are still huge. I did join a BNI. I never did that when I was captive for 25 years. I visited, said no, 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 no. That's been huge for me.
Mm,
I don't have a brick and mortar. Our agency is virtual, and we explain that when prospecting, when onboarding. This is how we're going to do things because I believe this is how it's going to be done in 20 years when my sons take it over. I don't.
yep.
They're not going to come in for a review and sit at the desk and sorry, I can say it now. Waste 2 hours of my time. Time's valuable, and so we chose to do it this way.
Mm. So your experience in 2023 sounds like it was reasonably successful in arguably the hardest year to be a PNC insurance agent in the last 30 years. So you've got to feel pretty good, my friend. You have survived a gauntlet in the last calendar year, and here you are a year later, and you're trending in a good direction.
Yeah, it was hard. Um, before we sold, we spent a few months planning, setting goals, all those kind of things. We felt pretty sure about where we would be, and it's not fun to miss your goal by 500 grand your first year.
Mm,
Let's put it that way. But it
no.
was also 2023. It's not something that I can blame all on that, right? We own a lot of the stuff on our end, but when carriers don't want new business, it really makes it hard.
Yeah.
That's something that I
Yes, it
can't
does.
quite say, hey, that's some of it. That's my fault. No, no, they didn't want business. And so we wrote what we could, but 24 will be better and 25 will be rocking and rolling. I think the industry will be just fine.
Nope. I that is exactly the way that I read the tea leaves for the executives and the folks much higher placed than I am. 24 is going to be a very difficult year for underwriting, not as bad as 23, but still difficult. We're not going to see massive rate shift like we did last year, and underwriting guidelines just getting piled on left and right. But it looks to be the second half of 25, things are starting to look better. As long as we can avoid those critical, massive weather events
Yeah.
like we had last year. I think it was the statistic I read was 28 separate events that had at least $1 billion of incurred losses. And we can't have another year like that, obviously.
No, no. 24 suffers things like that, then that's going to postpone this years down the road.
Yeah. Yes, it will. But that is a different episode for a different day, and we are not a gloom and doom podcast. So, what are you doing this year, man? What are you doing to be successful in the practice of your agency? What are one or two behaviors that you find yourself leaning on to drive good things to happen?
Probably the biggest change that happened with me was I started reading again. I hadn't read books since I was a kid, school. That just wasn't me. And now I can't get my hands on things fast enough. And and my friends in the industry posting pictures of what books they're reading or what they're doing has gotten me through some tough times and is exciting. And Amazon dropped off the energy bus. That's my next one. And I hear good things about it and I can't wait to start it tomorrow morning.
Mm,
Just keep learning, um, stay positive, and life is great. It just, I don't think I've ever been happier in my entire life as I am right now in the middle of a tough, hard market. I am happier than ever.
That's beautiful. I love that you can say that in the middle of challenging times. It tells me that you are grounded, that you have good things that are underpinning the thoughts and feelings and observations that you have beyond just what is happening today, and what is happening this week or this month. What do you attribute that to? What is your foundation that you lean on? Is it a faith of some kind? Is it a worldview? Is it an inspiration of a friend or loved one? How do you find your strength when it's really hard?
Mine's family, and I've got a phenomenal son that is so level-headed. Me and my oldest could get a little crazy, but my son Isaac is about as level-headed, and will just remind me that you can't control that, Dad. You're complaining about that or this. And my wife's amazing. She's such a hard worker. She's in a different industry, but just works so hard. And having a family to lean on. Sometimes the family hasn't been perfect, and some of my life experiences haven't been perfect with families, but right now it's perfect. And if
Mm,
I didn't have my family, I don't know, maybe I wouldn't even have stayed in insurance. It's that
mm.
it's them that drive me every day, every single day.
Love it. No, that's an amazing answer, man. As we look to land the plane here in just a second, I have one last question for you, and then I'll let you finish with whatever you want. I've started circling back around to this question because I got away from it for a while, and some people were asking me, hey, I wish you'd ask this question. I find it useful. What are in your experience two technology things or vendors or whatever that you absolutely can't live without? What are your two ride or die vendor or technology partners?
If I said vendors, I'd say Canopy Connect. I
Okay.
can't imagine not being able to get deck pages. We're to the point where we don't quote somebody without a deck page, period. So
Yeah.
I couldn't live without them. They're fantastic. Technology. Um, it's, it's hard not to say a CRM because it's my life, right? I use ADG Zoom, and everything's in there. But I feel like Teams, Microsoft Teams, has been crucial to
Yeah.
having virtual office and team members that aren't in the building. So we could not help each other and grow and write business if we couldn't communicate the way we do with technology. So Teams is huge.
I will echo what you just said with Teams, but I'll expand it to the Microsoft Office
Yeah,
platform.
all of it. Mhm.
The whole thing, I know that there's two camps, that you're either in the Microsoft camp or the Google camp. I strongly prefer the Microsoft camp, and the way that Teams and OneDrive and SharePoint
SharePoint.
all come together, and the integrations. We recently moved our CRM to InsuredMine and plugged in RingCentral, our voice provider, into InsuredMine. So we took it out of Teams. It used to be plugged into Teams, which was super cool. We decided it made more sense for it to be plugged into InsuredMine, and they couldn't be integrated with both at the same time.
Gotcha.
But even before then, it's like the Microsoft platform is basically the foundation. Every file that we have is in there. We have, an intranet with training sites and all of our training videos, all of our onboarding, all of our ongoing carrier information. When underwriting guidelines get dropped, we stick it in the carrier file in SharePoint. It was like, I don't know how we could run our agency the way we do without Teams and Microsoft.
Yep.
So pretty cool that you're in that same vein, man. I love that.
Yeah, when I heard about SharePoint and really saw it, that changed a lot too.
Yeah.
That was huge for us. And then we just said, I'm done. Everything is Microsoft now. We're going back and everything's there. And it's
Yep.
trying to simplify things. So we couldn't live
Whew.
without Microsoft Office. So
That really is the word of the year for me. And you know what? I'll ask that question too. Simplify is our word. Stop trying to be cute and do everything under the sun. My failures in 2023 are well documented. Anybody who listens to this podcast knows that I had a really hard year, missed the boat in just about everything. A lot of lessons learned. 24, the secret sauce is cut it out if it doesn't need to be there. Streamline and simplify everything we possibly can. Do you have a word picked out for this year? Have you gone through that exercise?
I did, and I had a hard time coming up with one. Simplify was one of them. And we had gotten a little erratic and maybe had a little bit too much going on because we had a few months, and it's like, well, let's build this. Everything I wanted that I couldn't have on the captive side, let's build it all. And it was a little bit too much. And so we're going to back that off and simplify it. But work harder every day. Just work harder than you did yesterday.
Yep.
And everything will be all right if you just work hard. Do your best you can. If you want to use quotes, the 1% better every day.
Yep.
And nobody knows what tomorrow is, or next month, or next year. So let's all work together.
Yep.
I wouldn't be where I'm at without the help of countless agents out there.
And where you're at after 1 year is pretty cool, man. You are an inspiration to a lot of folks. I hesitate to say I'm proud of you because I'm not your mentor. I'm not your coach or anything like that. But as an adjacent person, I can say I'm really proud of your effort, man. Like, way to go. You have achieved some really cool things in only 1 year. I cannot wait to see what year 2, 3, 4, 5 looks like for Ryan Englund and the Englund Agency. So as we wrap this thing up, man, anything we didn't cover that you wanted to get into? Any final thoughts you want to share with us?
I think I'd like to end with making sure that people know that I'm here for anybody. Like I said, so many people help me get where I'm at, that if anybody has a question, if anybody's thinking about it or has jumped and 23 and wants to join the crowd, just call me. Pick up the phone, call me on my cell phone. 801-836-1883. It's open to anybody.
Easy now. You just threw your cell phone out there for thousands of listeners.
Like I said, it's impossible to imagine where I'd be without you and others like you that help me. So if I can help anybody, I'm happy to help.
I will humbly say thank you for those kind words. And I feel exactly the same way, man. I give because I have received. It just seems like the right thing to do. And 5 years ago, I was the one asking all of the questions. So if I get to answer some of them now, cool. Seems only fair. So, hey, he is Ryan Englund from the great state of Utah. And this has been another episode of the Agency Freedom Podcast. Hit him up on social. All of his information is going to be in the show notes. And Ryan, thanks so much for your time, man. I hope you have a great rest of your week.
Thanks, James. You well.
All right, we'll talk to you later, boys and girls. Take care.